Please remember to be polite, keep your phones off, and stay seated if possible during our speaker. Now, would you help us welcome the first speaker tonight, one of our committed members, Joey G. Give Joey a big hand.
Hello, everyone. My name is Joey. I am an alcoholic. All right. See, my sober date is August 24th of this year. I have 125 days sober today. So I grew up in Payson, Arizona, just like an hour and a half from here. My whole childhood, my whole family I grew up in, they were all alcoholics, drug addicts, you know. My grandma passed away from cirrhosis to the liver, and then my uncle, he died from alcoholism. So I had a pretty dysfunctional family growing up. A lot of situations of my mom and my dad fighting, and a lot of cops and stuff growing up, just them around, you know, and that kind of became normal to me after a while of growing up, just having that kind of situation put in my life. And my mom, she was a meth head, you know, and my dad, he did heroin. And I didn't really start using alcohol until I turned about 13. I was really young. I think I was junior high. I was in 8th grade or something. And it started off just me, I would sneak out of my house at night with my friends, and we would go, and I would steal liquor from my mom's liquor cabinet. And the way I would make that she wouldn't notice I was taking anything is I would fill it up with water afterwards. I don't know if anyone's ever done that before, but and I didn't want her to find out. And so then high school comes around, and I start drinking a lot more, and I'm ditching school, and kids at school that were my friends, that knew that there was something wrong with what I was doing. And, they would tell me, hey, you need to get it together. What are you doing? What are you on? And I was just drinking. And it got to the point where I dropped out of school, and then I just became this outcast. I had these really low-end friends that I was hanging out with that only wanted to be around me if I had something to offer. And it wasn't until I was about 24 that I found Alcoholics Anonymous through a rehab center that I went to called Wolf Creek Recovery. And a place saved my life, my first time. And I thought, I thought I was cured of this addiction of alcoholism. So I stopped working a program after about a year, or it was about 7 months, and I was dry for the rest of that year. And I thought I didn't have to go to meetings, or I didn't have to call my sponsor. I just thought, oh, I have a girlfriend now, I have a car, I have a good job, working construction, that I don't need these meetings, and that turned out to bite me in the butt, So yeah, and then started drinking again. And I don't know about you, but like drinking and driving was like the funnest thing for me. I loved drinking and driving. I don't know, and then realizing that I almost ran into somebody drinking and driving. That really like freaked me out. And like, I was like, man, I can't keep living like this. I'm going to kill myself or somebody else because that's what this disease wants. It wants me dead in a ditch, and it wants me miserable. And without this program, I would not be where I am standing today, because this program has saved my life. And so I decided that I needed to go back to rehab again. So I did that. Went to another 90-day at the same rehab I was at before. And this time I've been taking it seriously. I have a great sponsor. I have great friends. People came tonight to support me in doing this, which is amazing. I thank all of you guys for coming and supporting me. And yeah, so like Alcoholics Anonymous has showed me that I can live a life of joy and happiness if I am in fit spiritual condition. And knowing that I have like the greatest connection with my higher power today, which I call God. For the longest time, God wasn't in my life. I even one time wanted to sell my soul to the devil. That was not the brightest thing. But yeah, so that didn't happen, thank God. And now, like, my family wants to talk to me now. I get to like communicate with my aunt and my uncle. And like for the longest time, I just thought that they didn't want anything to do with me or my brother because we are addicts, and they're not. But, we grew up going to their house every year for Christmas and the holidays. And, ever since my uncle passed away, we stopped doing those things. And I think a lot of it too is just me and my brother were running amok, together, drinking, drugging. A lot of it was drinking though. But yeah, like working these steps is also one of the greatest things I could have ever done for myself. Like 1 through 3 is an everyday thing. And it's not like surrendering to this addiction is an everyday thing as well. Knowing that, I can't go a day without getting a hold of somebody in this program, talking through a situation that I may not know how to handle, and just be able to call someone up, pick up your phone. For any of you new people who are here, just stick around. It does get better. I spent a lot of time, miserable and in the gutters. Like my head, the voices in my head, the thoughts that I had, really never thought I was an addict or an alcoholic until I found Alcoholics Anonymous, because I just thought everyone else had the problem, not me. But like looking at it now, it's like, a lot of the girlfriends I had when I was using, I thought they were the crazy ones. But I was. Yeah. But yeah, and I appreciate Mr. Mike over there, letting me speak, and Curtis. I don't think he's here, but and I'm glad and grateful that this is my home group. Great to see everyone here, a bunch of beautiful faces in this room. Yeah, and I just I really just want to talk about what it's like now, because I get to really be okay with what I'm doing in my life. And like, I may not have the greatest job right now, but it's a humbling job for sure, you know, and I get to get my GED. I get to like further my life with a better education, and I don't have to look to when am I going to get my next drunk or whenever, you know. I don't have to do that anymore. As long as I have God in my life, you know, everything's going to be okay, because, you know, without God, like, I'm just miserable, and like, I want to isolate. I want to be alone. I don't want anyone to talk to me. And yeah, I'm grateful, like so grateful that like I'm alive today, and that I get to stand up here and speak to you guys and let you guys know that you don't have to drink again, you know. You don't have to suffer anymore, because I'm tired of suffering, and I just want to be okay with myself. And I can today say that I love myself, and I'm glad that I am alive. And with that, I think I'm gonna pass.
Thank you, Joey. Wonderful talk. Now, our next speaker, please help me give a big hand to Kate Kay.
Hi, I'm Kate, and I'm an alcoholic. Congratulations to the chip takers, and welcome, Sarah. Welcome home. There's a family here for you if you want it. I'll start with a little bit of what it was like. My sobriety date is 4/13 of 22, so I have a little over 20 months. This is the longest time I have ever had sober, by about a month. Definitely completely different this time around than it has ever been before. I grew up on a little island in Alaska, and I say that because it rained a lot and there was nothing to do. So it was, you know, I started drinking when I was 13, and that wasn't abnormal. It was normal. And, you know, the first time I drank, there were 6 of us girls who were all probably like 90 pounds soaking wet, and we finished 2 liters of alcohol. And, you know, we were drinking and throwing up and taking another shot, and we were all doing it, and it was normal. Like, to us, that wasn't weird. And all these girls drank like me, and I continued to drink with them through middle school and high school, and found a lot of people that drank like me, and it just didn't seem weird or out of place. Never did I question that what I was doing was wrong or that I was an alcoholic. It was just normal to me. My alcoholism progressed fairly quickly into other forms of alcohol. I moved out of Alaska. As soon as I graduated high school, I moved to Seattle, where there was more alcohol, more people to drink with, that it was easier to get, and I could do it away from my family, so I could drink how I wanted to drink and they wouldn't notice. I kept everything looking really good on the outside. My whole middle school, high school, you know, I went to school, I got decent, good grades. I graduated with all D's, but I graduated. I had a full-time job all through high school. You know, when I moved to Seattle, I got my own place. I went to college. I made sure everything looked really good on the outside, so everybody else thought I was doing really well. And I was really good at convincing myself that I was doing well. You know, as long as I could maintain a job, maintain a place to live, somehow avoid getting killed, then I was doing great, which just really wasn't the case. Early on in childhood, I developed these roles that self had assigned me, of like the caretaker, the happy one, the tough girl. They were things that I picked up through the occurrences of my life. I had two really great parents and what I thought was a fairly normal childhood. I had a really psychotic, very abusive older brother, but I dissociated a lot. I lived in this little fantasy world. I daydreamed a lot. I played outside and I thought that was normal. It really wasn't until like a couple months ago that it occurred to me that maybe I lived in this fantasy world because my reality was a bit rough for me to handle. And then, once childhood fades and that imagination fades, I had to find other things to fill in that void and distract me from my life, because I was really in this delusion that I had this great childhood and this great life and everything was fine and I had lots of friends, even though I never really felt fully connected to anyone. I really have always felt quite out of place in this world. I get along with everyone. I have lots of friends. I'm generally happy, but I never, I've heard some of my favorite speakers say, like, they just keep waiting for the space people to come down and take them. And I understand that. I understand feeling like I'm not a human. Especially when you can dissociate with alcohol and then it makes it more real. Then I get sober and I get all these human emotions and human feelings, and it's very rough. My sponsor told me one time I'm a spiritual being having a human experience, and I really liked that. I was like, oh, so I'm not human, yes. So my alcoholism progressed. When I was 20 years old, my mother got really sick. I had moved to Hawaii running from a crazy drug dealer that I let live with me. Wasn't the first time, wasn't the last. And I escaped to Hawaii to start over again, because whenever I screwed up my life really badly, I would pick up everything and move. I would move states, I would change jobs, I would change friends, boyfriends, change everything on the outside, hoping that it would fix the issues. And then my behaviors, they weren't old behaviors, my behaviors, my ideas, they came with me. So I eventually created the same reality no matter where I went or who I was with. I moved to Hawaii and was planning on staying there. And I loved it there. It was the first time I'd felt like I was home since I left Ketchikan. And I went back to Seattle to pack up my things, and my mom told me she was really sick and she needed me to take care of her. So, of course, I said yes. I ended up being her caretaker for 5 years. She passed when I was 25. It was very hard. I was consumed by self and alcohol and every other thing imaginable the whole time I was taking care of her. I carried a ton of shame and guilt and regret after she passed away, because I was there, but I wasn't really there. I spent every single moment with her for 5 years, but I wasn't really there. She had to have a bell that she would ring when she needed something to wake me up, because I was passed out in the other room. I gave up. The first time I ever went to a meeting, it was an HA meeting, and this woman stood up on the podium and said she missed her mother's death, wasn't there when her mother passed because she was high. And I was like, that'll never be me. Guess what? It was. It was me, and I made that my reality. And I used that as a crutch. I used that as a crutch to drink for a really long time. Every time I would get sober, the feelings would come back, the emotions would come back, and that shame and guilt would consume me. And I would use that to be like, this is why I drink. I need to drink. I can't live in this reality. I'm not okay. I need to drink to be okay. And I used it for a really long time. I did a lot of inventory around it, and I did some trauma therapy around it. And it's been 8 years, but I finally let go of that shame and guilt. I finally get to see my mom when I look in the mirror. I can finally say that I am the daughter that she raised me to be. And, I get to look at it from a whole different aspect, and I don't have to use it anymore to continue letting my alcoholism progress. I was in and out of AA for 8 years. I would do really well. I thought for the first month you had to work super hard. Second month you had to work kind of hard. Third month, it gets a little better. After a year, whatever. My ultimate character defect has always been self-reliance. I had to figure everything out myself. I could do it by myself. I could fix myself. And it took me out every single time. I would get confident and everything would get better. And I would stop going to AA. I would stop going to meetings. I would stop talking to a sponsor. I would peter out and self would get really loud. It would creep in and it would tell me, you're more patient when you drink. You're a better mom when you drink. That could only be self, because we know that ain't true. It would tell me all these things, like you're more caring when you drink. You're a harder worker, like just insane things. But when you're all alone and you don't have other members of AA to bounce those things off of, self gets really convincing and it gets really loud. And then I would inevitably drink. I would go, you're right. For a really long time, it didn't take any convincing from self. Self would say drink and I would drink. There was no play the tape through. There was no questioning. It would say drink and I'd be off to the races. And I was never a relapse for a day kind of girl. I had to get really, really miserable and really screw things up until I was in so much pain that I was willing to try again. And I never got it. I could never get it because I just couldn't surrender. I couldn't give up my will. And another word for will to me is control. I couldn't give up control of my own life. On April 13th of 22, I got surrendered by my alcoholism. I got rescued. I was in a horribly abusive relationship that I created my own chaos. I created that relationship. I enabled that person to treat me that way. And, it was another form of alcohol to me. I found in that person. I was addicted to the chaos and the relationship and trying to play God in his life. And I'd done that. This wasn't the first time. I'd done that multiple times before. It just didn't end as badly. I tried to play God and I tried to save him. And I call it, some people call it like king alcohol, that my alcoholism and my relationship, I'm also an Al-Anon, if you can't tell, caused me to push things across the table to king alcohol that I never thought I would. I pushed over my son. I pushed over myself. I pushed over my freedom. And then, thank God stepped in. I got pulled over and I saw it as I saw God's hands. For once, I saw God giving me the opportunity and I took it. I gave him my social and my name, even though I didn't have to, and I said, please take me. And as soon as I got in that jail cell, I felt free. For the first time, I had surrendered. I realized that everything I thought I knew, all these old ideas and behaviors and things that I had thought were me and I had held on to my whole life, I realized they were wrong. I was wrong and I was insane. And I had to change everything about me and give up everything I thought I knew if I wanted to stop drinking and be sober and be happy and get myself back. And that happened. I remember the first meeting that I went to when I came back to Prescott was at Safe Harbor. It was a nooner, and all I said was, it's good to be home. Like, you guys are my family. This is my home. I actually have real friends now that don't want or expect anything from me. They just love and care about me. I am a good friend now. I show up when I'm supposed to. I show up when I don't have to. I show up when I say I will. I get to sponsor other girls and help them crawl their way out of hell like I did. That has been the biggest blessing. I call them my gold nuggets because they bring me more wealth than any amount of money ever could. Watching them succeed in life is better than any goal I could achieve myself. And I'm a good mom now. I'm about to get my son back full time. I got to spend Christmas and I got to be Santa. And I can say that with pride now, that I'm a good mom and I'm a good friend and I'm a good daughter. I call my dad all the time just to say hi, not because I want anything, just to say hi. And this program has given me everything. It's given me a life worth living. It's this beautiful symphony that God has orchestrated for me that I could have never, ever dreamed of or came up with for myself. And, there's a lot more work to put in. I will never stop or be done putting in the work and changing and growing. But as long as I continue to seek God and grow my fellowship, hopefully I'll never have to pick up a drink again. And with that, I'll pass.
Before I introduce our next speaker, would somebody come get these cupcakes? Okay, now, if you will help me, please give a big hand to my friend Janice S. She's our next speaker.
Hello. My name is Janice, and I'm an alcoholic. Thanks, Mike, for asking me to speak. It's good to see some familiar faces out there. So, I come from a family, generationally, of alcoholism on both sides of my family. My grandma on my mom's side was full-blooded Indian. And just to kind of start off, when my mom was in her 30s, she was driving home from a bar and she drove into a brick wall and almost lost her life. She was in rehabilitation for a year. And after that, she stopped drinking to raise us kids. And there were 7 of us. I was the 6th of 7 children. And my older siblings were into drugs and alcohol. It was pretty chaotic growing up. And I felt bad for my mom watching her trying to raise these kids and not really knowing what to do. She brought us to church, and she was a good example. Like, she had her quiet time every morning, and through all that, I feel mostly like she did the best that she could with what she had. And my sisters and brothers, they drank, they did drugs. My 3 older sisters got pregnant in high school and had children. And so anyways, as I watched this, I remember telling my mom, I'm not going to do that to you. And when I got into middle school, I started drinking, and I kind of did the same thing. I just partied, and it just, went awry. And I ended up in the hospital with alcohol poisoning and had some other incidents. I met my husband now when I was 16. He was 5 years older than me. And we laugh about that because we're like, any sane parent would say, what are you doing with my 16-year-old daughter? But because I was the 6th of 7th and everything that she went through, she was like, you seem like a nice guy. But anyways, so I think once I met my husband, things kind of slowed down. We partied, but, we would just go over to his friend's house. And then we had a baby, and then it changed again where we were, just kind of drinking at home with dinner and or on the weekends if we had friends over, things like that. But in my late 20s, my sister Sue, she was really going downhill, and we were all trying to help her. Anyway, she ended up dying at the age of 38 due to alcoholism. A year later, my brother Joe, he passed away from a cocaine overdose at the age of 35. And I think at this time, I was looking at my own drinking, and I think that I so didn't want to look like that like my drinking was like nobody would know. I drank wine. I didn't get drunk in front of people. I didn't go to parties drunk. But I did a lot of sneaking and a lot of hiding. And so, I had this shame because I felt like I was kind of like living these two lives. And I ended up going to an AA meeting in my late 20s, and I sat there. I felt very uncomfortable. I walked away with an AA book, and I read that book for the next 20 years, drinking wine, crying, because I could relate to so much of those things. And I have two boys, and my youngest one was drinking. He was doing some prescription drugs. And again, I had this guilt and shame because I was trying to help him. And at the same time, it's like I couldn't stop myself. And he kind of would throw my drinking in my face. And, I would sometimes, it would just be easier to bring the bottle of wine in my bedroom. And, I don't know. It's like we try to do these things to hide, but really it's obvious. And then it's thrown back in our face. And I feel like I wasn't drunk at home a lot in front of my kids, but I was drunk enough for them to notice it, and my eyes kind of looked crazy. So I had my younger son, it was like 11 o'clock at night, and I got a phone call, and it was from the police department. He had gotten a DUI, and I just remember just crying, and because I didn't know what to do. I couldn't help him, and he was out of control. And then soon after that, my oldest sister Debbie, she was having all these health issues, and she went into the hospital. She had to have open heart surgery. They found out that she had colon cancer. Her liver was so bad that they said, you know what, we can't do anything with the colon cancer until you stop drinking. And it was probably 3 months, and she died because she couldn't stop drinking. And my world kind of fell apart at that time, and that was November of 2014. And I just couldn't hide it anymore, and I just wanted to die because it's like I was trying to control all these outside things, and I was so out of control. And it was the day after Thanksgiving, and I just cried out to God and said, I need help. And my subconscious was, I'm here. I'm here, but you need to help yourself. And I remember opening or finding a meeting, and I went to a Alano club, and I got there. I couldn't find any parking. So I drove back home, and the Alano clubs have meetings every hour. So I went back 15 minutes early, and I found myself a spot. It was standing room only. There was some bikers who were getting some tokens, and the place was just a full house. But that was the beginning of my journey. And I was so afraid. I was so afraid, and I felt so alone. Like I felt like only I was going through this, that I was the only one hiding my drinking and my alcoholism. And in those Alano clubs, people directed me to some other meetings, and I found this great women's meeting. And it was so wonderful to be able to speak and hear other people's stories, especially when they were much worse than mine. And just to realize that I'm not alone. And I just feel like God orchestrated so many things. I remember at 60 Days, my Wednesday night meeting, they were changing commitments. And there wasn't a lot of people there, and they needed a treasurer. And I said, oh, I'll volunteer. And it was, you had to have 6 months. And so anyways, they did a vote, and they said, we're going to go ahead and let you do it. And, you know, for me, it's like I felt like I had 1 foot in and 1 foot out. And so it kept me in the program for 6 months. I went to a women's retreat at my church, and I went alone, not knowing anybody, which was really unusual for me. And I met up with this woman there who's, she was this beautiful lady, and it's just, I know God put her there and our time together, but her husband was an addict, and we just got to share, and, you know, it just gave me so much hope. I used to think to myself, like, why me? Like, why did I get this opportunity and my family didn't? And I heard a tape from Father Martin. I just listened to a lot of AA. I just was saturated in that when I was first in the program. But, you know, not all of us get to make it in these rooms. And this is what it took to get me in here. It took all that devastation in my own family. Because other than that, I'm not sure that I would have humbled myself and admit it, because, you know, for my family and my husband, who I will been with for 41 years this February. And my boys, they thought it was a joke. They were like, you're not an alcoholic. Like, why? You just want to be a part of a club. And I was like, really? Like, this would not be the club I would want to be a part of. And, you know, it's ironic because it's like, it's the biggest gift to me. To be in these rooms and to have my life back, and to realize that you know, when you grow up with alcoholism and that's all you see is people drinking, and it just kind of seems like the norm, you don't know what's out there. You know, us alcoholics, we hang out with other alcoholics. We hang out with people who like to drink. So, you know, I just understand that I'm here for a reason, and this is not the place that I like to be in front of a bunch of people speaking, but given the opportunity, it's like I want to give back what's been freely given to me, and I'm not afraid anymore. I used to be afraid of everything, the past, the future. My life today is a beautiful gift. Daily meditation, prayer, renew my source of well-being with God. And I have the reassurance that my journey will be as He wants it for me. And for that, I'm grateful to have God in His rightful place. I am in Al-Anon. And, you know, I was just obsessed with my children. Like, I'm just so afraid of what was going to happen to them. And both of them struggle with alcoholism, but I'm giving them the grace to find their way. My youngest son has gone through recovery 3 times, and he's doing okay right now. He's not active in AA, but he's sober. So I just want to thank all of you for being here tonight and for listening. Thank you.